When did you realize evil wears a friendly face? The first time I saw blood on the floor, it was just a small drop from my own finger. I was 4, and I'd been trying to play my mother's violin when I slipped. She scooped me into her arms, kissed my hand, and said, "Careful, sweetheart, music's special, but so are you." Back then, our house felt safe and bright. Everything changed when my mother married a famous musician. At first, he smiled at me and said, "You've got real talent." When I played a song after hearing it once, he told my mother, "She's born for this." He started giving me a practice schedule before I even started elementary school. There were days he'd say, "No nap till you're done." I didn't know music could ever hurt until he showed me how. Soon, practice swallowed every part of my day. He taped a strict schedule to the wall, filling every hour with drills and songs that hurt my fingers. If I started to cry, he'd grab my wrist and say, "Stop that, you're already 4 inches." Sometimes he'd grab my favorite stuffed animal and toss it across the room or threaten to throw it away. Once, I watched him rip the ear off my teddy bear when I played the wrong note 3 times in a row. If I looked hungry, he'd eat my animal crackers right in front of me while I played through snack time. He'd say, "You can have a treat when you play it perfectly." Some nights, he made me practice until my fingers bled. He'd press a tissue into my palm and say, "Wipe it up, we're not done." Sometimes I fell asleep holding my violin, waking up to his voice telling me, "You wasted time. Start over." I stopped asking to play outside. I stopped asking for anything at all. After my mother confronted him, things at home grew tense and cold. In front of others, he'd smile and say, "She loves to practice. She wants to be the best." Since then, he locked himself and me in the practice room so we could be serious without her interference. He stopped letting me talk to her alone. If she tried to comfort me, he'd stand in the doorway, arms crossed. It felt like our house was constantly agitado, like a musical piece full of agitation. After a while, I started hiding little things that showed what was happening. I tucked used tissues stained with blood in a drawer beneath my socks. I folded up my blood-stained blanket and hid it behind my bed. One day, after he forced me to eat a piece of sheet music I hadn't finished, I whimpered to my mom and clutched my stomach. I handed her the blanket and the tissues and whispered, "I want to leave." She started keeping a notebook of what she saw. Sometimes I saw her slipping photos of my fingers and wrists into her purse when she thought he wasn't looking. As my mother collected more evidence, his punishments changed. Sometimes he made me balance on a chair while playing, saying, "If you fall, you start over." Other nights, he forced me to play on my knees until they hurt so much I could barely stand. Once, when my mother knocked on the door, he told me, "If you say a word, I'll make sure you never leave this room again." I kept quiet and tried not to cry, afraid of what might happen next. The night everything broke was the worst of all. The morning of the recital, my hands were already swollen and wrapped in bandages. He woke me before sunrise and made me practice again and again, his voice cold as he said, "If you mess up today, you'll never play anywhere again." My knees shook, and I begged him to let me rest. He grabbed my wrist so hard I cried out. He shoved me back into position and shouted, "No one cares if you're tired. You'll be perfect or you'll be nothing." At the recital, my vision blurred with pain. I tried to stand and play as he watched from the front row, his eyes daring me to fail. My hand shook, the bow slipped, and the violin crashed to the floor. I heard gasps and then silence all around me. My legs gave out, and I collapsed on the stage, finally unable to keep going. When I woke up, I was in my mother's arms on the stage. My hand throbbed and my head spun, but I saw him at the edge of the crowd, yelling at the teachers and trying to push past them. My mother held me close and whispered, "You did enough. Let me take care of the rest now." She stood up, her voice clear as she showed everyone the blood-stained tissues, the photos of my hands, and her notebook filled with what had happened. Security guards moved in and put handcuffs on him. He tried to shout, but no one listened. I watched as they led him away, his face red with anger and fear. I held on to my mother, still shaking. Afterward, my mother took me home and brought me to a doctor where my mother reassured me, "You don't have to play again if you don't want to." I never did.